According to the State Health Department, the Norman Veterans Center failed its residents on multiple occasions. In the case of James Laughlin, the records show they didn't report his assault or his death until well after the law said they had to. And without answers from the ODVA, we went to a public meeting to ask the man in charge of the center at the time what happened.
Mr. Wilkerson, I'm Phil Cross with Fox 25. I'd like to ask you about your failure to report the death of Mr. Laughlin to the State Health Department.
At the time of James Laughlin's death, Terry Wilkerson was in charge of the Norman VA Center.
All facilities that operate under the Oklahoma State Department of Health have a requirement to report, and we record as required.
No, you didn't in this case.
I respectfully disagree with that statement, sir.
The Department of Health says you did not report his death within 24 hours and had not reported it 5 days later when they showed up to do an inspection.
Well, I'm sorry, but you have some wrong information.
This report from the State Health Department, addressed to Wilkerson and dated November 12th, cites the failure to report a total of 7 times. The report even quotes one nurse saying she wasn't aware the incident should have been reported. And that was 5 days after the law says the ODVA should have notified the State Health Department.
They have to report an incident within 24 hours, and then they have 5 days to file a final report.
But Mike Cook, the director of long-term care services for the State Health Department, says the ODVA filed nothing until called out by inspectors.
I mean, is that acceptable?
No, they were cited for that deficiency, and then they subsequently filed the incident report.
The health department had to conduct a second investigation after learning video existed of the night James Laughlin died. According to this health department report, the video contradicted some of what Laughlin's family was told and what inspectors found during the first investigation.
The place there at Norman, not one person has called and said, you know, we're sorry that your husband passed.
Joanne says the family tried to address their concerns with Wilkerson.
We was talking to him about him changing his clothes and about some things that went on and you know, about him dying and everything. And he looked at my daughter and he said, well, just how old was your dad anyway? It's like, he's an old man, you're gonna die anyway, I guess.
If the Norman VA Center were a private facility, they would face fines. The state says a private facility with these types of confirmed violations would have already been put on a termination track to shut them down if corrective action wasn't taken. But the ODVA faces none of these consequences because the state cannot fine itself.
It would cause considerable problems.
Following Laughlin's death, Wilkerson was promoted out of the Norman Center to the main ODVA office. The agency did fire some staff and a criminal investigation is ongoing. But for Joanne, none of that will bring back her husband. She says major changes are needed to protect the other veterans who once put their lives on the line for our freedoms.
What if one of those guys dies the same way James did? It was the same as me helping him die. I mean, their blood would be on my hands.
There has been one other recent major change following revelations of what happened at the Norman Center. The governor requested the termination of the head of the ODVA and asked the commission in charge of the agency to name Major General Miles Deering to head that department. But there are some lawmakers that say the changes there are not happening fast enough to protect the veterans. Coming up Wednesday night, the changes one senator says are needed and what's holding back making fixes to this embattled state agency. Reporting in the studio, Phil Cross, Fox 25 News.